Some say that this is the first electric station wagon, but is it? I know one thing for sure though, it is at least the first affordable electric station wagon. Hello there monsters and men, ladies and people. This is the MG5 and welcome to Recharging. Is the MG5 a whole new model? No, it is not. It is a very thorough facelift, but they really improved it. Just look at a picture of the old model. And now look at this new one. Yes, the old model looks like a car from 10 years old, and the new one, well, it looks modern. Yes, it will not excite you, but I think, well, it looks okay. One thing that you might notice while looking at the side profile of this car is that it has quite a high ride height compared to other station wagons. And that is because the platform that this car is standing on was not designed as an EV only platform. And therefore, to keep enough space between the road and the battery pack, the car had to be raised a little bit. You can actually see the battery pack protrude underneath the car, just like you can with a Hyundai Kona or Kia e-Niro. Is this a downside though? Well, not really. There's actually a benefit, and that is that when driving this car, you don't feel like driving a station wagon. It feels more like driving a crossover because of that higher ride height. The MG5 is available with two different battery packs, and for some reason these battery packs are not the same as in the facelifted MG ZS EV. First, there is the standard range. The standard range has a 50 kWh battery pack and 46 kWh of that is usable energy. It also has a WLTP range of 320 kilometers. What it does share though with the ZS EV is that the standard range gets a battery pack with a LFP chemistry. A benefit of the LFP chemistry is that it does not mind to be charged to 100%, and therefore you can always enjoy the full range. Then there is the long range version. The long range version gets a 64 kWh battery pack and around 57 kWh of that is usable energy. That one has a lithium ion chemistry and a WLTP range of 400 kilometers. And that battery pack is quite a bit smaller than that of the MG ZS EV, because that one has a 68 kWh of usable capacity battery pack. So 57, 68. I don't know why that battery pack is not in this MG5. Maybe it is because of cost, or maybe the bigger battery pack simply doesn't fit. I am currently driving the long range version of the MG5, and as I said, that one has a WLTP range of 400 kilometers. I can tell you from experience that when driving on mixed roads, yes, you can do that. You can drive 400 kilometers, maybe even a bit more. If you drive only on the highway, 100 to 120 kilometers an hour, you get a range of somewhere between 300 and 350 kilometers. Keep in mind though, these are summer figures. This car does not have a heat pump, so in winter I do not expect you can get 400 kilometers of range. The MG5 has 3 different regen levels, but it does not remember the regen setting it was in the last time you drove the car. When you start the car, it is always on regen level 2. Hello motorcycles. And a flaw that the MG ZS EV had, and this car does not, is that the MG ZS EV, when you were in a certain regen level, the car could not regen more than the regen level it was in, even if you press the brake pedal. Because normally in an electric car, when you press the brake pedal, you do expect the car will use regen to slow down and at last apply the physical brakes. Well, the MG ZS EV didn't do that, but good news, because this car does. This car works like an EV should work. I'm sorry, I almost forgot to mention it. No, this car does not have a one-pedal drive mode. Yes, sad face. As standard, this MG5 has a 11 kilowatt onboard charger. That means that charging the standard range from 0 to 100% will take you around 5 hours, and this long range around 6 hours. Fast charging then, well, both versions, the standard range and the long range, can both take a maximum charging speed of 87 kilowatts. And yes, I know this is not a groundbreaking number, but the MG5 has a relatively flat charging curve. The standard range from 10 to 80% will take you around 35 minutes, this long range around 40 minutes. As standard, the MG5 also has support for vehicle to load. That means you get an adapter that you can put in the charge port. Unfortunately, this test car doesn't have one, but normally you get one. You put that in the charge port, and with that adapter you can charge anything that you want with the battery of this car. Your electric bike, your inflatable boat, even another electric car. And now the most important part of a station wagon, the boot. We have to keep in mind that the MG5 is not as long as a Ford Focus station or a VW Golf station, for example, and therefore the boot is not as big as of those cars. But if I open it up, you still get a very respectable 479 liters of boot space. The boot itself, well, there are no features, there are no hooks, there is no 12-volt socket. The only thing that you can do is raise or lower the floor. Under the boot floor there is enough space though to store your charge cables. If you fold down the rear seats, you get a boot space of 1367 liters, but a downside if you fold down the rear seats is that you do not get a flat floor. It would have been amazing, but unfortunately, as you can see, no frunk. The first thing that I noticed when I got into this car is that, well, the floor is quite high, and this is still a station wagon, so the car is relatively low. And this results in your legs having a more horizontal position than they would have in a real crossover. It reminded me a bit of the first time I got into a Tesla Model 3. Then the interior itself, well, I do find it a nice place to be in. Of course, in this price range you cannot expect the best materials in class, quite a few hard plastics are being used, but everything feels solidly made. And they did try to liven things up a little bit with, for example, this fabric here on the dashboard and here in the door and the aluminium look plastic. I do also like this white grey interior, but it is an option of 1,000 euros though. By default you get a black interior. Cubby space then, well, the door pockets are reasonably sized, they do fit a large bottle. You do have two cup holders here in the middle. Under your center armrest is a cubby. There is a cubby here under the center console, and you do get quite a large glove box. In front of the driver there is a partly digital display, and even though it is a fairly simple display, it does show you all the information you want and even a bit more. It doesn't only show you the tire pressure, but also the tire temperature. I've never seen that before. On the dashboard there is a screen with MG's iSmart infotainment system, and if you have seen my review of the ZS EV, you know that I do like MG's iSmart infotainment system. It is a simple system and it is also responsive. It also has support for Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. It does get over-the-air updates, and there's also an app to remotely control the car. And a good thing about MG's iSmart system, or the way MG has implemented it, is that it does have physical shortcut buttons for your volume, the home screen, turning the climate control on and off. So yeah, again, I do like it. Then the rear seats. The seat in front of me is in my typical driving position. I am 1 meter and 85 centimeters and I have plenty of knee room left. I can also shove my feet under the seat in front of me. Headroom though is not so great. People taller than me, they will touch the roof. The car is quite wide, so sitting here with 3 people, no problem. And what is also nice is that even though this car does not stand on an EV-only platform, the car does have a flat floor here at the rear. What is not so great though is that, well, again, the floor of the car is quite high, and therefore your legs are quite high, and therefore as an adult you do not have a lot of support here at your thighs, and that can get uncomfortable on a longer trip. Besides that, well, there is not a whole lot here, to be honest. You do have an armrest with 2 cup holders, but no USB ports or air vents. Another thing that this MG5 does better than the ZS EV is its driving position. First, the seats are better, and second, in this car the steering wheel is actually adjustable in both ways, like you expect from a modern car, really. As you have seen, the ride height of the MG5 is higher than that of a normal station wagon, and therefore it doesn't feel like driving a normal station wagon. It actually feels like driving a crossover, and that, well, that is nice, to be honest. Then the driving itself, well, It will not surprise you that this is not an exciting car to drive in. It is actually a very neutral car to drive. The steering does not have a lot of feeling, but has a nice weight. Drive this car with a higher speed on the highway, it still feels steady. And the suspension is on the comfortable side of the spectrum. The suspension is actually very well balanced if you ask me. And even though that this car has a more comfortable suspension, take it through a high-speed corner and the car doesn't lean as much in the corner as a ZS EV does. And that is probably because this car does have a lower center of gravity than that ZS EV. You can tell though when driving on the highway that MG did save some money on the sound isolation. Especially when driving on the highway, this is not the most quiet car in the world. It does make quite some noise. All modern driving and safety features are available on this MG5. Okay, I'm sorry, not everything, almost everything, because this car is not available with blind spot monitoring or rear cross traffic alert. And I have to say though that the systems that are on the car are not as refined yet as on most competitors. What I can say though is that, unlike the ZS EV, this car does use regenerative braking with the adaptive cruise control. Very good, as it should. So what is my final verdict? Well, I find it odd that even though the MG ZS EV and the MG5 come from the same company, the MG5 doesn't have all the flaws that the MG ZS EV has. And the MG5 drives way better, in my opinion, than the ZS EV. It is just a shame that the long range of the MG5 doesn't get the same battery pack as the MG ZS EV, the 68 kWh battery pack. But if I had to choose between the ZS EV and the MG5, I would definitely choose the MG5. And that was the review of the MG5. I hope you liked it, and if you did, please give a like. If you have something to say, leave a comment, and well, it would be awesome if you subscribed. And then I would like to say now thank you a lot for watching, and as always, to be continued.